James, what's the truth in all these protests?
So the thing is that these people are not just protesting about reopening the country. What they're protesting for is their livelihoods. You know, you're talking about people whose businesses, whose jobs have all disappeared. And in a lot of cases, they're living in states such as Michigan, where the rules are so draconian, they're not even allowed to buy garden seeds because they're considered non-essential goods. So the states have been very different in their approaches, and a lot of them are really, really draconian. Some of them make, Victoria right now look like a libertarian paradise. And their jobs have dried up. Their own personal economies have dried up. They want to work. Now, some of these guys look completely like nutters. They've got the guns and all of that stuff. But an awful lot of them are just really concerned about putting food on the table. And they think, why should my state, why should my area be treated the same as, say, New York City, which is this absolute charnel house where everybody is living on top of each other and taking the subway and, spreading the virus. But then they're saying, well, why if I live in, Kentucky or Louisiana or Oklahoma, why, do we have to be suffering the same restrictions when the coronavirus cases and the caseload is much lower? So it's really about their desire to earn a living. And I think a lot of the people who are saying, oh, no, these people are just nutters, are people who are still able to comfortably work from home and who don't face the same sort of impact that these lockdowns have, except these are the people who are making a lot of the policies that are causing the lockdown. So, it's that red-blue divide, but even pushed even further than it was before.
Corey, I'm watching a lot of the footage. I see the images in the media in the morning, the newspapers, photographs of these rallies. I have to say I haven't worked out yet whether they're going to help Trump or not. He tends to talk about them quite a lot, say that they are his people at the dispatch box when he's doing his usual press conference. I have to also say that some of the kit, the automatic weapons or semi-automatic weapons and the ammunition, etc., that people are holding in these rallies is pretty terribly scary for someone in a country like Australia. His comments about the gunships and the gunboats and shooting them down in and around Iran, is that an election play?
Well, Peter, I happen to agree with you about the imagery coming forward, but we can't judge what happens in America by Australia's gun standards or acceptability, I suspect. But Iran is, and the comments from the US president about Iran are, I think, linked into a much bigger geopolitical play, quite frankly. We've got this oil glut at the moment by Saudi Arabia and Russia. And they're both intended to, A, damage Iran because Saudi and Iran don't like each other. And the Russians are trying to extract some sanctions or sanction embargo lifting from America into their economy. And so I think Donald Trump is playing to his base, but he's also playing into applying pressure to Iran to conform to a more mainstream geopolitical environment and maybe getting some normalcy back into the oil markets, which are crippling America right now. I mean, oil in domestic delivery in America is selling for less than the cost of production. It's actually a negative price. They'll pay you to take it off their hands because there's nowhere to store it. And that's a huge issue, I think, globally.
It's interesting, James. I watched Prime Minister's questions for the first time last night. They started up again. It's Wednesday normally in the House of Commons. Of course, the Prime Minister wasn't there. His stand-in was the new opposition leader, Keir Starmer, was at the dispatch box. He was, I thought, excellent. I have to say, if you're looking for something to watch on a Wednesday night and it's not Sky News, watch British parliamentary questions. Because the way in which they ask the questions and actually get a bloody answer leaves our own parliament for dead. But put that to one side, they've been saying in the UK for days and days, we're at the peak, so coming down the other side. Their death toll now is 18,000 people. It's a real worry.
Look, it is real worry. I will say, though, that on the Question Time, I actually grew up when I was a kid. I loved watching British Question Time on C-SPAN in New York because, that's one of the things that got me really into parliamentary politics. It is a great cut and thrust there. It is a huge worry, though, in Britain right now with the cases not coming off the boil yet. At the same time, though, I am seeing an awful lot of big companies. I saw one of the biggest home construction companies in Britain. I think Rolls-Royce is starting up with engines and things like that. A lot of companies saying we've got to get back to work because we've got to get the economy moving. And we're going to see in coming days a real tense fight, I think, between those who are saying, look, we need to manage this, but keep the economy going. And those who say, no, we have to lock things down even more dramatically. And the thing is, they've been very dramatic with the lockdowns in Great Britain, and yet it doesn't seem to have made a difference. I don't know what that says about whether or not the heavy-handedness does something or not, or whether it's just people are still on the tube and things like that, and that's how it's going to wind up spreading. Density, I think, may wind up being the ultimate cause of this, and that's going to cause us to rethink a lot of the way we do things around the world.
Corey, I'm going to have to leave it there. I was going to ask you about Kim Jong-un because we still don't really know anything more than earlier reports that he was gravely ill, but I've run out of time. We'll come back to that one. We might table that for next week because the power vacuum, better the despot maybe, but the power vacuum that's likely to be left is what's activating all the military analysts, intelligence analysts at the moment, but we'll come to that next week. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Corey Bernardi and James Morrow.